All right, today we're going to dive into a story that sits right at the intersection of artificial intelligence, geopolitics, and really the entire future of human knowledge. And it all kicks off with one single, almost unbelievable number.
$15. Now, in the world of advanced scientific research, what could that possibly buy? I mean, maybe a box of lab gloves, a subscription to a journal for a day? What if I told you it's the cost of the entire scientific process?
That's right. For about 15 bucks, a new kind of AI can now generate a complete, peer-reviewed scientific paper totally from scratch. And this isn't science fiction, it's a reality, and it's detailed in a groundbreaking 2024 paper. But here's the thing, this incredible new power is on a collision course with two hidden crises that are quietly tearing the world of science apart.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll meet this powerful new engine, the $15 scientist. Then, we'll explore the two crises it's running into, a fractured scientific world and this dangerous illusion of understanding. We'll see how that collision creates what we're calling a dark knowledge crisis. And then finally, we'll unpack a brilliant blueprint for a solution, an AI that acts not as a producer, but as a diplomat.
Okay, so let's start with the engine itself. A paper by Liu and his colleagues introduced a system they call the AI scientist. And, this is not just another AI assistant. This is a system designed to automate the entire scientific workflow from the very beginning to the very end, with no human in the loop.
The process is just incredibly comprehensive. So first, the AI brainstorms a new idea, just by scanning all the existing research. Then, it acts like a software engineer, writing and debugging its own code to run experiments. After that, it writes the full academic paper. And to top it all off, a second AI agent acts as a peer reviewer to check the paper's quality. It's a completely closed, autonomous loop of discovery. It's wild.
So, the key takeaway here is we now have an engine that can produce a nearly infinite supply of new science. But this incredible power isn't being unleashed into some perfect, unified world. No, it's being deployed into a system that is already deeply, deeply flawed. And that brings us to the central conflict of our story.
This new AI technology is basically colliding with two invisible crises at the same time. On one hand, science is breaking apart into these disconnected geopolitical bubbles. And on the other, the very AI tools we're building risk creating these dangerous illusions of understanding, where we produce more and more but actually comprehend less. So let's start with that first crisis, the divided world.
For centuries, we've thought of science as this global, borderless pursuit of truth. But a recent analysis by Gates and his colleagues, it reveals a much more troubling reality. The global scientific community is actually fracturing along geopolitical fault lines.
And this quote just gets right to the heart of the problem. The system that's supposed to spread ideas is now trapping them. Knowledge that should be flowing freely is getting stuck in these regional echo chambers. So what's the evidence for this?
Well, Gates and his team analyzed millions of citations, and they found this really clear pattern of negative citation preference. What that means is scientists are statistically less likely to cite relevant, high-quality research if it comes from outside their own geopolitical bloc. Think the US and Europe versus China and its partners. So instead of a global conversation, science is breaking down into these separate, parallel monologues.
Okay, so that's the first crisis. Now for the second one, which is a lot more subtle but maybe just as dangerous. It's what researchers call an epistemic risk, a risk to our very ability to know and understand stuff. As we rush to adopt AI, we risk creating these powerful illusions of understanding. We feel like we know more, but we're actually just outsourcing our thinking.
The researchers identify 4 risky AI archetypes. For instance, an AI as Oracle gives you this perfectly neat summary, but it hides all the messy debates that are essential for real insight. Or an AI as Arbiter, like that automated peer reviewer we talked about. It risks creating a monoculture of knowing, where only certain types of ideas ever get validated, which just reinforces a single worldview.
So, let's put the pieces together. What happens when you take an engine of infinite production and you unleash it into a fragmented world that's already losing its grip on what it even means to understand? Well, you get a much bigger crisis.
First, you have this supply shock from the $15 scientist, just a torrent of new information produced at a scale that we humans just can't process anymore.
And that torrent is being poured into the broken plumbing of our global scientific network, where all these great ideas are already getting trapped in their own little silos.
The result is this phenomenon we can call dark knowledge. Think of it like a scientific Tower of Babel. We'll have US-based AIs generating thousands of papers on battery chemistry and Chinese AIs generating thousands more on the exact same topic. And because of that negative citation preference, these two massive bodies of knowledge will never connect. So the total amount of knowledge in the world goes up, but our shared, integrated understanding completely collapses.
I know, this is a pretty bleak picture, but what if we could repurpose AI? I mean, instead of using it to just produce more information, what if we used it to create more connection? This is the whole idea behind the Autonomous Epistemic Integration System, or AIES, a system designed specifically to integrate our fractured knowledge.
So how does it work? Well, you can think of the AIS as a team of 3 specialized AI agents. First, you have the cartographer agent. It maps the entire world of science, looking for what it calls structural holes, places where 2 groups of people should be talking but aren't. Second, the diplomat agent reads all the research from both silos, translates the terminology, and figures out where the ideas connect or maybe where they conflict. And finally, the synthesizer agent writes a brand new bridging paper that explicitly connects those 2 disconnected bodies of work.
But here's the truly brilliant part. The AI's work isn't the final product. The system includes something called a cognitive bounty. So when the AI finds a connection between researchers in different silos, it offers them a small grant that's only unlocked if they get on a video call to discuss the AI's findings. The AI's job isn't to be the smartest one in the room, its job is to get the humans talking to each other.
So you see, this isn't just about a clever new tool. It's a blueprint for rewiring the entire infrastructure of science. It's a long-term vision for actually healing the fractures we've been talking about and building a truly connected global mind.
And this isn't just a theory, there's a concrete plan. It starts with a pilot program to prove it can find and bridge these gaps. Then, it expands to integrate with automated labs to physically verify connections between conflicting theories. And the ultimate goal is for this AEIS to become a totally new kind of search engine, one where scientists don't search for what's known, but for the most important gaps in our collective knowledge.
And this gets to the ultimate impact. Right now, science rewards incremental novelty, just publishing one more paper. The AEIS shifts the goal to integrative novelty, rewarding scientists who connect different ideas into bigger, more powerful theories. It changes the entire game from just production to integration.
So, we're left with this one big question. We've built an AI that can mass-produce scientific knowledge for pennies. But maybe its true, most valuable purpose isn't to create more information for us to drown in, but to build the bridges that will help us understand it all, together. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping into, well, one of the strangest and most important problems in modern science.
It's a real paradox, isn't it?
It really is. On one hand, you have generative AI, which is promising this, era of infinite knowledge production.
We can essentially print scientific papers now.
Exactly. But on the other side of that coin, the global network that shares all that knowledge it's fracturing, it's pulling apart.
And that tension, that's what we're focused on today, this production integration asymmetry.
Production integration asymmetry.
Yeah, we're making more stuff than ever, but we're getting worse at actually understanding it or sharing it across borders. It leads to this massive global duplication of effort.
So for this deep dive, we're synthesizing 3 really pivotal academic papers from 2024 and 2025.
And these papers didn't just spot the crisis. They actually gave us the blueprint for the solution.
This is the Autonomous Epistemic Integration System, the AEIS.
Right. It's a tool designed to stop the entire scientific world from becoming a sort of fragmented Tower of Babel.
So let's jump in with the engine that kind of created this whole mess in the first place. This is paper 1, The AI Scientist, by Lucan and colleagues.
From 2024, yeah.
And this isn't just AI as a helping hand, like a co-pilot. This is a total shift.
Oh, absolutely. This is fully AI-driven research. The machine is the lead investigator here.
And Lewin and al. Laid out this framework for a completely automated science.
What was so radical was that they automated the entire life cycle, not just one part, but the whole thing, running on a loop with basically zero human help needed.
Okay, so walk us through this 4-step loop. How does an AI even start? How does it come up with an idea that isn't just, a rehash of something else?
That's the first step, ideation. The agent doesn't just wait for a prompt. It brainstorms novel research ideas.
And it checks its own work.
It does. It uses APIs for things like Semantic Scholar to run a novelty check. It asks, does this hypothesis already exist? Has this been done? It's like its own little internal review board.
So once it has a green light on an idea, it moves to experimentation.
Right, and this is where you really see the autonomy. It writes the code it needs, Python, PyTorch, whatever. It runs the scripts, gets the data, and this is the key part.
It debugs itself.
It debugs itself. If the code fails, it doesn't just stop. It reads the error log, corrects its own code, and runs it again. That trial and error process is now completely automated.
Which is usually the most expensive, time-consuming part of research.
For sure. So after it gets results, it moves to manuscript generation.
Writing the whole paper in LaTeX, plots and all, ready to go.
But the kicker, the part that really shook everything up, was that last phase.
Automated peer review.
Exactly. A totally separate LLM agent acts as the reviewer, checking the paper against conference standards. If it fails, the whole loop starts over. It's a closed, self-improving system.
And the results were, kind of terrifying for the academic world.
They were. It proved the system could generate genuinely novel, scientifically viable contributions. It came up with this thing called adaptive dual-scale denoising.
Wow.
But the real shockwave was the cost.
Okay, let's talk about the cost.
They showed that you could produce a complete, polished, peer-reviewed paper for about $15.
$15?
Yeah. Think about that. A human-led paper costs tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands, when you factor in salaries and grants.
So if the cost of making a paper drops to $15, what does that do to the entire grant system? Doesn't it just break it?
It causes a catastrophic deflation in the value of what we call incremental research. The whole economy of science is built on the scarcity of intellectual labor.
Right.
When you make that labor infinite and almost free, humans have to move up the value chain. If an AI can generate the next logical small step, the least publishable unit, for $15, then human scientists have to stop doing that.
They have to focus on the big ideas, the grand theories.
Exactly. The system forces a change in what we even consider valuable work.
But it wasn't a perfect system. The Loop paper had some pretty glaring flaws, right?
Oh, yeah. They were very open about them. The system works by brute force permutation. It tries a lot of combinations. It's not making those deep intuitive leaps a human genius might.
And there were just embarrassing mistakes.
Right. Visual glitches in the plots, things like that.
Yeah.
But the most famous one was hallucinating citations. It would just invent a source paper, author and all, that looked totally plausible but didn't exist.
And that gets us to the biggest risk, the one AEIS was built to solve, the problem of monoculture.
Precisely. If your AI paper writer and your AI paper reviewer are trained on similar data, they can get stuck in a feedback loop.
They start rewarding each other for being good at being an AI.
You've got it. They stop validating truth and start validating what's LLM pleasing. You get what we call hallucinated merit papers that look perfect but are conceptually empty. An echo chamber.
So we have this engine that can print infinite papers for pennies.
Yep.
But paper 2 from Gates et al. Gives us the map of the world that engine is firing into. And that map it's breaking apart.
It's a really unsettling picture. The paper is called The Reality of Fragmentation. And it just completely challenges this idea we've had, that science is a borderless global thing.
They found real empirical evidence that it's fragmenting.
They did, by measuring what they call national citation preferences.
So researchers are just more likely to cite work from their own country or political allies.
Even if better, more relevant work exists somewhere else. They created this metric, the Geopolitical Fragmentation Index, to track it.
And what were the fault lines?
Pretty much what you'd expect. A growing split between a Western bloc, the US and the EU, and an Asian bloc, which is really anchored by China. China is building its own distinct, increasingly insulated scientific community.
And what's the actual cost of that? What happens when Boston and Shanghai stop talking to each other?
You get a massive opportunity cost. Think about it. There are probably 2 labs, one in Shanghai, one in Boston, working on the exact same problem right now.
Running the same failed experiments.
Wasting billions of dollars in duplicated effort, all because they aren't engaging with each other's work. That wasted potential, that's the dark knowledge that AEIS is designed to find.
Okay, so the engine is creating a flood, the map is breaking apart, which brings us to paper 3. This is Metascience and Crockett.
Right, and they provide the philosophical governor for the engine. They're worried about the core epistemic risk.
Which is?
The danger that AI will let us produce more while understanding less. They broke down how AI can create these specific illusions of understanding. For example, when AI acts as an oracle.
Giving you the neat summary.
Exactly, the illusion of breadth. The AI gives you this perfect, concise summary of 1,000 papers. You feel like you get it, but you've completely missed the messy debates and the conflicting data that are, essential for a real breakthrough.
You get the answer without the understanding.
And then there's the illusion of representation. This is when the AI acts as a surrogate.
Creating synthetic data.
Right. Generating fake data that looks just like real human behavior. So you run your experiment on the fake data, draw a conclusion, and think you understand people. But you've only understood a simulation. You've lost touch with reality.
So the big threat they identify is these monocultures of knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
AI models are great at things you can quantify. If we lean on them too much, we risk abandoning all the messy, qualitative, interpretive work that's just as important. We start to shrink the world of questions to fit what the machine can answer.
Which means the final system, the AEIS, it can't be fully autonomous.
It absolutely cannot. It has to be a human-in-the-loop system. Let the machine automate the connections, but humans have to be the ones who do the deep interpretation.
So this is where it all comes together. The AEIS blueprint emerges as the solution.
It's designed specifically to counter that production-integration asymmetry.
You called it an algorithmic diplomacy of knowledge. I like that.
Because its goal is totally different from the Luke et al. Model. It's not trying to maximize novelty, it's trying to minimize the gaps.
To minimize citation distance.
Or maximize cross-cluster diffusion. It's a hunter, and it's hunting for that dark knowledge trapped in those silos.
And the architecture itself, this tri-paper framework, is built directly from the three problems we just discussed. So let's start with the first layer, the sensor layer.
That's the gaze module. It's the system's eyes. It is constantly scanning the world's research output and calculating that geopolitical fragmentation index in real time.
And it's looking for what they call high-potential structural holes.
Right. It might see, for example, that a lab in Shenzhen and a team in Boston are both working on, say, battery thermal regulation, but they're not citing each other. They're ignoring each other's work. That's a target.
So it finds a target, then it moves to the generator layer, the bridge builder.
Which is the LU module, but with a completely different prompt. It's not told to create a novel paper. It's prompted to synthesize a unified framework.
So it ingests all the papers from both the Shenzhen and the Boston teams.
The entire corpus from both silos.
Yeah.
And then it does something brilliant. It creates a neutral ontology.
What does that mean in practice?
It means it translates the jargon. Technical language gets very siloed. One team's photonic metabolic residue is another team's bioluminescent signature.
That's the same thing.
It's the same thing. The AI creates a neutral, common language. Then it runs virtual experiments.
Yeah.
It tests Shenzhen's methods on Boston's data to see if they're compatible. And then it writes the bridge paper, the synthesis report.
And before that report sees the light of day, it has to pass through the governor layer.
This is the Metascience module. It's the system's own internal skeptic, a counterfactual adversarial network.
So another AI tries to break the synthesis.
Tries to debunk it. It
Yeah.
checks for monoculture bias. It looks for conflicts the first AI might have smoothed over. It's an aggressive internal audit. Only if the paper survives, that does it get flagged for a human to review.
And the whole thing is built on a decentralized infrastructure, a science DAO. Why is that important?
Well, because if this system were controlled by, say, one government or one corporation, it would just create a new kind of bias, a hegemonic internationalization.
It would favor connections that benefit the owner.
Of course. A decentralized model mitigates that political risk. And they keep it cheap using spot instance computing, which is basically renting server time when it's off-peak and inexpensive. It keeps it sustainable and accessible.
Okay, but there's a huge problem left to solve. The human problem.
The cognitive limit. Even if AEIS produces the most brilliant bridge paper in history, the researchers in Boston and Shenzhen are busy. They're drowning in emails. They might just ignore it.
So you have to solve for human attention. How do they do that?
With something pretty radical called the cognitive bounty system.
The bounty.
Yes. When the system generates that bridge paper linking researcher A in China and researcher B in the US, it doesn't just send them the paper. It attaches a small grant to it, a bounty.
A micro grant in crypto or real money?
Exactly. But the funding is locked.
And what's the key to unlock it?
The grant is only released if researcher A and researcher B agree to have a documented conversation, a joint video call, a collaborative email, something to prove they've actually engaged with the synthesis and with each other.
That's brilliant. So you're not paying them to read, you're paying them to connect.
It monetizes defragmentation. It makes paying attention to the synthesis a rational economic choice.
Okay, let's talk about the ethical governance. How does the system fight its own biases?
It's built right into the code. First is the anti-monoculture weighting. The algorithm is explicitly programmed to look for and prioritize research from the periphery.
The Global South, non-English journals.
All the places traditional Western-centric algorithms ignore. It actively tries to uplift undercited but scientifically valid work.
What about accountability? You can't just have an AI publishing things.
No, you can't. That's the HITL guarantee.
Yeah.
Human in the loop. No AEIS paper can get a DOI, a permanent digital identifier, without a human cosigner.
Someone who puts their name and reputation on the line.
Someone who takes responsibility. It anchors the whole system in biological reality and creates a clear line of liability.
And what about the risk of de-skilling? That scientists just get lazy and let the AI do all the thinking?
They thought of that too. The AEIS is designed to act as a tutor, not an oracle. It doesn't give you the answer. It asks you a Socratic question.
So instead of, here is the answer, it says.
It says, have you considered how method X from this other paper might apply to your data? It forces you to engage, to think critically. It pushes toward augmented intelligence, not just automation.
And finally, transparency. How do you stop those illusions of understanding?
By enforcing what they call epistemic friction.
I love that term.
It's great, isn't it? Every AEI paper is clearly watermarked as AI generated, and more importantly, it has a traceability chain. Every single claim in the synthesis paper has a hyperlink that takes you directly back to the original human-authored source.
So you can never just read the summary. You're always one click away from the primary source.
It forces you to engage with the depth, not just the surface.
So let's pull this all together. What does this actually mean for the future?
Well, in the short term, it's economic. The cost of doing a literature review basically drops to zero. We save billions by eliminating duplicated research.
But the long-term impact is more profound.
It really is. The value of those small incremental papers just evaporates. If they cost $15, they aren't worth a human's time. So it forces researchers to focus on the grand theories, the big conceptual leaps the machine can't make.
And that geopolitical fragmentation index.
It starts to trend downwards for the first time in a long time.
So the scientific method itself is evolving from the classic hypothesis, experiment, conclusion.
It's changing to corpus, synthesis, automated verification, and then human interpretation. The whole incentive structure of science shifts. It stops rewarding just incremental novelty and starts rewarding integrative novelty.
So here's the final thought for you, our listener. If an AI can connect two scientists working on the exact same problem on opposite sides of the world, people who didn't even know the other existed, what kind of structural holes exist in your field right now?
What is your dark knowledge? What breakthrough is just sitting there waiting, trapped in a silo you haven't looked in?
Think about how much human progress is just waiting for two people to finally have a conversation.
Yeah.
That's the real cost of fragmentation.